It started with a whisper so soft, I thought it was my mind playing tricks. But it wasn't. It was real, and it was calling my name. I've always been terrified of sleeping alone, but that night it felt worse than usual. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, the silence almost suffocating. The kind of silence where you start hearing things that aren't there. The clock ticked slowly, mocking me, each second feeling like an eternity.
Oh.
But then I heard it. A rustling sound, faint, almost imperceptible at first, came from the direction of the bedroom window. I froze, my heart thumping loudly in my chest. I told myself it was just the wind, but my gut told me something else. I glanced over at the curtains. They were still, but for some reason, they seemed to draw me in, as if they were hiding something behind them. A sense of dread settled over me, like a weight pressing down on my chest. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to know what was behind those curtains. I turned over in bed, my fingers gripping the blanket, my breath shallow. Slowly I got up, trying not to make a sound. The room felt colder, despite the warmth of the night. I could see the moonlight filtering through the fabric of the curtains, casting eerie shadows on the floor. I approached the window, my heart racing faster with each step. My fingers trembled as I reached for the curtain pole. The moment I touched it, I hesitated. The air was thick with an ominous presence. The shadows behind the curtain weren't natural. They shifted, moving in a way that didn't match the movement of the light outside. I pulled the curtains back with a snap. Nothing. The window was empty. No one was there. But as I stood there, staring into the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was just on the other side, watching me. Then I heard it. A whisper, soft yet unmistakable. "Come closer." I jumped back, my heart pounding in my chest. My mind screamed for me to run, to leave the room, but my feet were frozen to the ground. The whisper came again, only this time it was louder. "Come closer." I backed away from the window, but my eyes couldn't look away. It felt like I was trapped, caught between the fear of the unknown and the overwhelming urge to understand what was happening. For a long time, I just stood there, staring at the empty window. My body trembled with anxiety, my skin prickling with the icy chill of the room. Every part of me screamed that I should leave, but I couldn't. It was as if the room had become a cage, and I was its prisoner. The whisper came again, louder this time, but it wasn't coming from the window. It was coming from behind me. I spun around in a panic, but there was nothing there. Only the empty, silent room. I didn't know what was worse, the whisper or the fact that I couldn't pinpoint where it was coming from. The air felt thick, heavy, as if the very walls were closing in on me. My breath became shallow, and I couldn't get enough air into my lungs. My eyes darted to the corners of the room, searching for any movement, any sign of life, but there was nothing. I couldn't stay in this room any longer. I had to leave. I rushed toward the door, only to find that it wouldn't open. The handle turned, but the door wouldn't budge. My breath hitched in my throat. It was locked. The shadows behind the curtains began to move again, but this time they were different. They seemed to grow, shifting and stretching, reaching out toward me as if they had a mind of their own. I wanted to scream, but the words caught in my throat. That's when I heard it. A cold, breathless voice. Not from behind the curtain this time, but right beside me. "Stay with me. Forever." I turned, and for a split second, I thought I saw something moving in the corner of my vision. But when I blinked, it was gone. Just the empty room and the ever-growing shadows behind the curtains. I don't remember how I got out of that room. Only remember the overwhelming feeling of something or someone following me, watching me. Even now I feel it. The presence, lingering in the corners of my mind, in the shadows that never seem to go away. And every night when I'm alone, I hear that whisper. It was just after midnight when my phone started ringing, but I wasn't touching it. It was on the kitchen counter, and I was lying in bed, alone, in the dark. I rubbed my eyes, confused. The ringing persisted, echoing through the house, distant yet sharp. I could hear the vibrations against the kitchen counter, the unmistakable sound of my ringtone slicing through the silence of the night. My heart skipped a beat. I glanced at the clock. 12:05 a.m. The ringing stopped. For a moment, everything felt normal again. But then, as if my body hadn't yet caught up to the situation, the ringing came back. It was faint but distinct, like the phone was calling from somewhere far away. I was paralyzed for a moment. Why was it ringing from the kitchen? I picked up my phone and checked the screen, expecting a missed call. Nothing. No notifications, no recent calls. I had no idea who it was, but the ringing, it was so real. A chill crawled up my spine, against every instinct screaming at me to stay still. I slowly slid out of bed, the cold air brushing against my skin, sending a shiver through me. My footsteps felt heavy on the floor as I moved toward the kitchen. With every step, the ringing seemed to get louder, pulling me forward. As I approached the kitchen, I noticed the faint glow of my phone's screen lighting up the counter. But something was off. It wasn't where I had left it. I froze, staring at the counter. My phone was lying there, face up, but I distinctly remembered leaving it on the edge of the counter near the coffee maker. It was in the center, near the sink. I felt my pulse quicken. I reached for the phone, slowly lifting it to my ear. Hello? Static. A deep, crackling silence. My breath caught in my throat. The sound of static was so loud it drowned out the ringing. But I could still feel it, the oppressive weight of something unseen just beyond the edges of my perception. I pulled the phone away from my ear, squinting at the screen. No signal. No caller ID. Just a blank screen flickering faintly. And then the phone rang again. But this time, it wasn't coming from my hand. I turned, heart pounding in my chest. It was coming from the kitchen, from the same place the phone had been moments ago. The ringing sound was louder now, almost deafening, and the static that followed it made my skin crawl. I glanced down at the phone in my hand, still silent. The ringing, though, continued. But it wasn't just the sound. Air in the room seemed heavier, colder, like something unseen was hanging in the space between us. I took a step toward the counter. My breathing grew shallow as I moved closer to where the phone had been resting. The ringing stopped. I waited, motionless, my mind racing. It was too quiet now. I reached out for the phone again. But something in the air, something heavy made my hand hesitate just above it. Suddenly, the phone rang again, right behind me. I turned too quickly, nearly tripping over my own feet. But when I looked, there was nothing. Just the faint light from the kitchen counter and the quiet hum of the fridge. I didn't hear anything else. No footsteps, no other sounds, just silence. For a split second, I felt a brief sense of relief. Maybe I was imagining things, but as I took a few shaky breaths trying to steady myself, the phone rang again. This time I didn't move. I simply stood there, staring at it, my fingers twitching at my sides. The phone rang one last time, and then everything went silent. I looked down at my phone. The screen was still blank. The call hadn't come through, but the ringing had felt so real. The fear slowly crept through my body, twisting around my insides like a vine choking the life out of me. I couldn't explain what had just happened. But the more I thought about it, the more one question gnawed at my mind. Asterisk if the phone wasn't in the kitchen, ... Then who was it ringing for? Asterisk. The phone hadn't moved. I never touched it after I left the bedroom. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a thought lingered, settling and unwanted. I wasn't alone. I froze in front of the mirror. My reflection didn't move. I raised my hand. The reflection did nothing. And then it smiled at me. It was supposed to be a quick getaway, a weekend alone in a hotel, far from the usual noise. I needed to clear my mind, escape the chaos of everyday life. The room was small but clean, king-sized bed in the middle, a desk with a lamp, and a full-length mirror on the wall opposite the bed. Simple, unassuming, or so I thought. I'd been unpacking when I first noticed it. Nothing at all strange, just a normal hotel room. But as I walked past the mirror, I saw something that gave me pause. My reflection, standing perfectly still, like I was. It wasn't moving. I blinked and looked again. No. It wasn't that it wasn't moving. It wasn't mimicking my movements. I raised my hand to adjust my shirt. In the mirror, my reflection stayed frozen. I tried again slowly this time, with both hands, and once again, the reflection stood still. Chill crawled up my spine, and I felt an unfamiliar tension in my chest. It wasn't right. A bad feeling began to creep up on me, that nagging sensation at the back of your mind that tells you something is wrong, something you can't quite see yet, but you know it's there. I stepped forward, close enough to almost touch the glass. The hotel room was oddly quiet, save for the hum of the air conditioning. As my breath fogged the glass slightly, I took one last look at my reflection, and it smiled. The smile wasn't mine. It was twisted off-center, as if the reflection had suddenly come to life, with an expression that had no business being on my face. It wasn't a normal smile either. It was wide, unnerving, but most unsettling of all. That it wasn't my smile. I hadn't moved a muscle, yet there it was, my reflection smiling at me. I stepped back, heart pounding in my chest. I rubbed my eyes. The smile should have disappeared, but it didn't. The reflection grinned wider. It wasn't just smiling, it was mocking me. I felt the sweat on the back of my neck, the hairs on my arms rising. The room felt colder. I stepped closer again, trying to will the reflection to do something normal, anything. But as I moved, so did the reflection. I tilted my head slightly, and it followed suit. I raised my left hand, and it did the same. It was mirroring me again, but it was wrong too perfectly in sync. Then I did something I never should have done. I stared deeper into the mirror, just watching, waiting to see what would happen, and that's when I noticed it. The smile was changing. It started to stretch unnaturally, pulling back at the corners of the mouth. The reflection wasn't following my actions now. It was acting on its own. I backed away, my breath shallow, my body tense. There was a pounding in my head, a ringing in my ears. I turned to leave the room, but before I could even reach the door, I froze. The reflection in the mirror was no longer just standing. It was moving, but not the way I was. It tilted its head slowly, in a mocking, deliberate way. Then it grinned wider, impossibly wider, as if its jaw had been unhinged. My own lips felt dry, trembling. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But my feet were rooted to the floor. Suddenly, the reflection raised its hand, not my hand. Its fingers curled unnaturally. A long, cold feeling ran through my body. I watched as it slowly touched the glass, its fingers scraping the surface. Sound was low and sickening, like nails on a chalkboard. I turned to the door, my body moving before my mind could process what was happening. My hand grasped the knob, turning it, but it wouldn't budge. The reflection. No, it wasn't my reflection anymore. It was alive now, and I was trapped in here with it. The smile twisted once again, and I felt a cold breath on my neck. "Get out," it whispered. I don't know how I made it out. I don't remember how I finally managed to break free of the room, but the image of that reflection, that thing, is burned into my mind. I don't know what it was, but I never returned to that hotel. And every time I pass a mirror now, I can't help but wonder, what if it's not my reflection looking back? I never looked at myself the same way again.